Detroit was destroyed in the First Robotech War. However, the tradition of industrial manufacturing continued in the city of New Detroit, rebuilt by the RDF during its days of restoration. New Detroit became the major production center of protoculture cells and mecha construction, as well as the major city of the Midwest. It continued to produce mecha and hardware for the armies of the Southern Cross, and escaped the Second Robotech War with comparatively minimal damage, but then was ravaged and destroyed again by the Invid in the Third Robotech War. Today's New Detroit is a shambles, its industrial complexes and skyscrapers mashed into ruins by the Invid. A few of the newer, better constructed buildings still survive. Although battered and mangled, they include the new Penobscot Tower, the Fox Theater, and the glittering Renaissance Center Shopping Office Mall. Huge mounds of rubble, once majestic 21st century constructs, block a tangle of roads, streets, and 20th century railways. Less than 5,000 people reside here, not including a few hundred nomads and travelers who stay for a while to find, trade, or steal what they can, and then move on to their next destination. Through some quirk of fate, about 70% of the survivors who are permanent residents of the city are under the age of 30. Perhaps it is the resilience of youth that prevents them from giving up and fuels the dreams of one of North America's last remaining freedom fighter undergrounds.
Bandits are also a fact of life. They are not as common in the city proper as they are in the outlying areas, but they harass and attack any who look unable to defend themselves. They rarely kill their unfortunate victims, but that does not make them any less dangerous. Despite Detroit's tragic history, the city has managed to maintain a strange level of technology. Those who live in the city are used to making do with what they have, scavenging a few relics of the past like flashlights, batteries, finely preserved army knives, or sometimes even a functional vehicle from the past 40 years. Storage tanks of gasoline and other petroleum products are plentiful if one knows where to look for them. A handful of turn-of-the-century factories and tiny workshops have been restored and can create and repair a number of things, from common household items to metal products. The river still offers a great means of transportation, as well as a place to hide contraband from the Invid, and the dozens of sailing and motorboats, rafts, and barges that dot our shores attest to this.
In addition to this, New Detroit has three other major elements in its favor. 1. Its dilapidated condition keeps the Invid from serious investigations, and the nearest hive is about 1,000 miles away. Refugees, although rarely turned away, do not flock to the city because most believe it to be a dead town. This is important, because if too many refugees begin to gather, it will garner the attention of the Invid and jeopardize the resistance movement. 2. There are a handful of old RDF and Southern Cross underground factories which still have areas that remain operational. Since all the protoculture is gone and the activity is unseen below the Earth's surface, the Invid don't care. This has enabled the freedom fighters to establish a secret underground base, complete with electricity, heat, fusion generators, 3 weapon recharging facilities, and a small, partially functioning RDF mecha factory that's used for the repair of mecha. 3. A pair of Horizon Troop shuttles crash-landed about 10 miles beyond the city's limits. Although most of those aboard were killed, much of the equipment and cargo carried in the shuttle's armored bunkers survived more or less intact. This introduced a whole variety of high-tech weapons and equipment to the denizens of the Detroit Underground. So today, it is not unusual to see a mixture of high and low technology in and around Detroit's ruins. There is an abundance of energy weapons, including the REF Gallant H-90s and Wolverine assault rifles, along with conventional rifles and pistols. Eclipse are scarce, but can be recharged by the underground. Conventional bullets and explosives are manufactured in some of the little shops and in basements. As usual, missiles and protoculture cells are the scarcest and most coveted commodities. Only the New Detroit freedom fighters and the most powerful gang leaders have any kind of surplus.
Not all of those who live in New Detroit do so on the wasted surface. Below the city, in the remarkably well-preserved 21st century sewer lines, subway tunnels and train stations, dwell the people who got tired of running for their lives all the time. This is where the heart of the city is preserved. It is here where the core of the New Detroit Underground lives, some 850 people or so, and they, with their underground network, are just as mobile as the cycle-driving maniacs above. This is the home of the resistance organization known as the Detroit Rockers. The subways are fewer than they used to be since many of the tunnels have long since fallen into disrepair and disuse. Some have just collapsed from old age, but the remaining ones follow a series of paths throughout the city on a north-south axis, with much smaller, less numerous, and more dangerous routes branching off to the east and west. Although the trains themselves no longer work, their tunnels serve admirably as communication routes, supply points, and ways of moving large numbers of people around without arousing the attention of the invid. A little less than a year ago, however, a massive invid bombardment of the city damaged many of the still serviceable tunnels, and made the rest even more unstable. Only the two major southbound tunnels of the Bend-Dixon railway line are safe enough to transport large groups of people into and out of the city. None of the local tunnels are fit to be crossed by civilians without major risk to life and limb, and are currently reserved for the troop movements of the Detroit Rocker Underground.
Rocker Hall is actually a cluster of buildings, tunnels, subway routes, and basements that allow the underground as much freedom to move supplies and people around as possible. It is like a medieval city fort enclosure that serves as a place where the surface populace can seek refuge from attack, and functions as an unofficial headquarters for the underground. The notorious musical group known as the Rockers also resides at Rocker Hall. The central above-ground landmark of Rocker Hall is known as the St. Angelo Warehouse, called the Wall by the underground's famed D-Rockers, and most of Detroit's permanent residents. Located on 2nd Street in downtown Detroit, it is a 9-story structure reinforced and buttressed against any natural or man-made disasters. It has survived sub-zero temperatures, blizzards, and tornadoes, as well as fires, explosions, invid bombardment, and a host of other disasters. The Wall has become an ideal storage locale, and secret access lifts have been installed into its basement from the Dixon Concourse, one of the largest subway stations in the city, 80 feet below its floor. The station itself became one of the city's main venues for rocker concerts, and the warehouse is more than an adequate muffler for the power chords and cheering crowds. All street-level subway entrances to the Dixon Concourse have either been flattened or permanently sealed. The station can be reached via a complex system of subway tunnels and sewer lines.
Among those who arrived on Earth with the 3rd REF Fleet were Professor Benjamin Walters and Lieutenant Michael Townsend. Both participated in the triumphant Battle of Reflex Point. A year later, however, after the second coming of the Invid, the pair found themselves lost and despairing amidst the ruins of Walter's hometown of New Detroit, Michigan. It was the arrival of Professor Walter's young friend, Lancer, and Rook's Knights that pulled the two REF heroes out of their melancholy. Walters, Townsend, and the others discovered that a significant population of orphans and adolescents were being preyed upon by powerful gangs of techno-bandits and slavers in the city. These children had nothing, no food, no nurturing, no shelter, and no faith. Through the music of Yellow Dancer, or Lancer, and the strength and skill of Lancer and Rook's Knights, they were able to unite the people and root the gangs from New Detroit. In the months that followed, renewed hope was instilled in the people, some semblance of law and order was restored, and the city began rebuilding. Professor Walters would prove to be an exceptional leader, always exuding a fatherly warmth and quiet strength, coupled with compassion and wisdom. Lieutenant Townsend would become the military brains of the outfit, an exceptional strategist and organizer, whose courage and tenacity is as great as any of the more famous heroes of the REF. Together, with Lancer and Rook's Knights, they established the Detroit Rockers Underground and the rebirth of a city. When the rumors came that Professor Walter's beloved friend, Lancer, had been betrayed and killed somewhere in the West, it sent a shiver of despair throughout the city. Heartbroken but determined, Walters and Townsend only increased their efforts. There could be no time for self-pity and remorse. Instead, Townsend, commander of the Underground, whipped his freedom fighters into a crackerjack fighting force unequaled in this part of the country. Professor Walters began to take the kids from the streets into the underground and personally teach them Lancer's ways, his music, and his credo of freedom and life. Their goals were the following: to establish an underground community which would support, teach, and fight for a free humanity. To seek out those who might give to, and benefit from, the friendship and loyalty of this community. To support the RDF and REF, and to hinder the Invid and Invid sympathizers in every way possible. To develop the mind, body, and spirit to the point where, upon Admiral Hunter's return to Earth, the underground can most effectively assist him in ridding the planet of the Invid and rebuild human civilization. To carry on the spirit of youth, rebellion, and triumph as exemplified in Lancer's rock and roll music.
To help keep alive the memory of Lancer, Rook's Knights, and the spirit to keep fighting, Professor Walters organized the rock band known as the Rockers. Over the last 3 or 4 years, the Rockers have kept the spirit of Lancer and freedom alive, and captured a fair amount of recognition for their inspirational music as well. One by one, as the music wafted to the surface, the fans of this strange rock and roll band decided that if their heroes could live and thrive in this world, then so could they. Within a year, concerts were being held every few weeks, and supplies were being properly collected, stored, and distributed evenly. The Rockers' music has become all that keeps this miracle from collapsing. Without them, some say, these people would quickly fall back under the same savagery that once reigned. It is safe to say that the Rockers are quickly gaining the fame and popularity of Lin Minmay and Yellow Dancer before them. However, the endless battle against the enslaving Invid continues to take its toll, and even the freedom fighters of New Detroit are beginning to despair. The music of the Rockers may become a grim reminder of a war lost to hopelessness. Professor Walters has developed a variety of new sonic devices that may prove to be the ultimate weaponry against the Invid. However, if mankind has given up the fight, what good are weapons? The Rockers have taken it upon themselves to breathe new life into the dreams of their fellow man. Using their mentor's creations, the Instrumecha, they will deal the Invid such a blow that all humankind will sit up, take notice, and know that all is not lost.
No rock group worth its salt is without its share of fans, those who love and respect their musical heroes without asking anything else in return. This group of fans, naming themselves the Dear Rockers, has taken it upon themselves to make sure that the ideals of their rocker heroes are upheld, at least until the next concert is due to hit. Rocker colors adorn more than 600 Dear Rocker jackets in the city of New Detroit, where they are most numerous. They have developed a system of hand, voice, and tapping signals used to identify friend from foe, and signify comings and goings. Friends are welcomed or helped according to the circumstances, while foes are avoided and observed. Violence is not the Rockers' way. The relationship that the Dear Rockers have with the Rockers, and with each other, is unique in these times. Many idealize the band and, like postmodern paladins, seek to carry out the messages in their songs to the letter. Some Dear Rockers have been known to cast people they call quitters, those who have grown so depressed with their situation that they become unfocused and useless, right out of the underground. Others have been known to drop dead from exhaustion, having rocked round the clock for days on end, saving lives during emergencies in the tunnels. Still others seek to guard the Rockers with their lives, never letting them out of their sight, clobbering overzealous fans who get too close. They are not official members of the underground, but might be thought of as a youth auxiliary force in civil defense. Most Dear Rockers believe that the best way to help the Rockers is to help rebuild the cities. Many will scrounge around junkyard and the remains of bookstores and libraries searching for books on how to build or repair the utilities of the past. Sometimes they even find something. Each Dear Rocker helps in the way that he or she knows best. Some are fine impromptu medics, others are fair mechanics and carpenters. These mechanically inclined kids are usually drafted by Benjamin Walters to help with an occasional project or two, and while none of them are skilled enough to construct anything complicated on their own, they are competent assistants and rarely make mistakes when asked to help out.